Fantastic. So we can go ahead and officially get started. I am Lily Mae, the Communications Director for the NC Housing Table. And again, as Denzel mentioned, this is an online workshop series that we do every single month to just educate, inform the community, and connect with advocates and leaders across the state. If this is your first time tuning in, I urge you to join our email list by visiting the nchousingtable.org. And you can also connect with us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn by following NC Housing Table. We actually just returned from hosting our first in-person policy dinner in Charlotte that went very well. So we will be hosting in-person dinner roundtables as well in other markets around the state. So if you're on the email list, you'll get some insight into that as well in case there's an alignment to join us. And I'm excited about the featured speakers we have today. But before we get to them, I'm going to throw it over to Denzel so that he can just give you a brief overview of the NC Housing Table, what the mission is, and why we're here today. Go ahead, Denzel.
Thank you very much, Lily Mae. I want to thank everybody for joining. I see some of our partners here. I see Duncan Schroeder here and some other folks. Thank you for all the folks who have supported us thus far. I think we're four now, Lily Mae. I think we four webinars in now. Yeah. So we are the North Carolina Housing Table. We have now officially 9 months in as of this month. We were started specifically with the task and the hope to work on housing supply policy. Most of this work was informed from a previous organization that I work with, which brought me into the Association of Mayor Baldwin and my council member Corey Branch from looking at the work of housing and the intersection of transportation. One of the things that I came to notice while TOD, which I'm hoping to get into a little bit more, transportation overlay districts, was this weird kind of play between cities and the state and the federal, and how much pressure gets kind of thrown at the lowest level of government, given the fact that the state has not taken on fully the role that it plays in kind of informing housing strategy and policy. So we are specifically a C4 org that has a right-leaning hired lobbyist. Our job is to try to make sure we get strange bedfellows in the room, so we don't take a side left or right. We're agnostic. We work with those on all sides, and we want to get everybody to the table. And I'm really excited at this work because it gives an opportunity. While housing, unlike other issues in the state or in our political sphere, has become very, very polarized, housing still seems to be the one area, kind of also throwing transportation there, where people generally have a somewhat understanding consensus. We may not all fully agree of exactly how it operates, but we all generally agree that there is something that needs to be done, and there's some policies that need to be relooked at in order to get there. Our hope now that we officially just started this North Carolina Housing Table Institute C3, which I'm grateful to say that Corey Branch has agreed to become one of our board members as well, is that we can begin to create resources for all tiers of government in the state to be able to be informed. One of the things I want to mention, when I was doing some of the work around Raleigh, I was running into folks from the essential level of business that operate in our hotels, folks that were working in our grocery stores, folks meeting bus drivers who were living in Johnson County, because they couldn't afford, by the nature of the locking of a policy, to be able to stay closer to the areas in which they work in. And it began to be a real deep concern for me that we have to figure out how to be able to get more voices and how to get more folks to the table. And so I'm grateful to say that I like to say, I believe Raleigh chose me, God chose Raleigh for me, and vice versa, because I was able to come in association with some great folks. Mayor Baldwin is my first mayor in the city. I got a chance to vote for, so I'm great to be able to say that I got to be able to see, and she always welcomed me in her chamber and gave me room to speak and voice my still novice leanings and understandings about all of the dynamics. And when I was looking for more insight on the granular level, now that I live actually in his district, Corey Branch provided several insights and connections and was willing to walk me through. And as somebody who's been able to do this work across 3 different states, I can say it's not oftentimes you get folks who are very, very honest, compassionate, and willing to give you their time that sit in these tiers of government. So I'm excited today to be able to hear what they have to say. I'm excited to leverage the mind and the wisdom that they have shared and being able to guide this city in these districts and their interactions on all levels from the state to the federal. And so I think after that, there's with no further ado, am I all right to go ahead and transition Lily Mae to Mayor Baldwin, and then it'll be Corey after. Am I correct following the agenda?
That is correct. However, before we get to the speakers, I do want to encourage everyone, if you have questions while they're speaking, to go ahead and put those in the chat because after they speak, we will have a question and answer segment because we do want to engage you and have open dialogue if you have questions or need clarity. So feel free, to put any questions that you have in the chat so that we can get to those after they complete. So we'll go ahead and transition to former Mayor Baldwin.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all today, and we'll talk a little bit, and I want to engage Corey too, because we worked on a lot of this together. I don't think that people often look at how transportation and housing is tied together. But for me, if you look at housing and transportation, and I'll add a third thing, climate change, all three of those are tied together because if you can build more density on transit corridors, you're reducing your carbon footprint. But also, if you can provide more choices of housing along transit corridors, that also helps because not everybody can live in a one-bedroom apartment or a two-bedroom apartment. But at the same time, we do want those choices there, which is the whole reason why we initiated missing middle housing. The latest stats that we've seen is that a third of our permits are now missing middle, which basically means townhomes, duplexes, quads, triplexes, different forms of housing that can serve people. So I like to talk about housing affordability and choice because choice is important. Not everybody can afford or wants to live in a 4,500 square foot single family home. I mean, it's as simple as that. And we need to provide different types of supply. One of the things that I don't think we as a region have done a good job with is building density along transit corridors. I know that right now we are doing that with the BRT line along New Bern Avenue. We have one of the things I really appreciate is we have built into this rezoning affordable housing bonuses. So if somebody is building housing and they're building affordable housing with it, they get a bonus in height. And so that's an incentive that can be used. But the fact is density builds ridership. And if we're going to build our transportation network, we have to have density along transit corridors. One of the things that really frustrated me was I brought a group to DC to meet with the FTA. And we were working, Go Triangle was working at the time on commuter rail. Well, this was right out of COVID. And point blank, the FTA told us you didn't score well on density. And right now we're not funding commuter rail because nobody is commuting anymore. We need to see what the changes are like and whatnot. I've always liked to talk more about regional rail, which we have in Raleigh. We have it, it goes to Charlotte, it goes to Durham, Greensboro, whatnot. If I'm traveling, that's what I take. But we can build on that. And it's not like we don't have transit, we do. Again, we need to focus on building density along those corridors. So, but not only with density, we have to look at amenities as well. Daycare is a great example of an amenity that can make people's lives easier, especially if it's located on a transit corridor. And, also white spaces that people can use for, say Wake Tech could come and teach a class, on vocational education and what that could mean for somebody's career. Showing kids what they can be, and they can't be what they can't see. So if we can build around some of those amenities, I think that we can really see our region innovate, take off, and provide the types of housing that we need for everybody. Corey, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. And thank you all for having me here. Some of the things that, we did here with the city of Raleigh and working with the mayor previously when she was on council is really focus on our transit overlay district. The transit overlay district is the city's way of establishing zoning to increase density, but associated with affordable housing. So whatever your base district is, say you are, your base district and you have a certain height limit. If you want to increase your height, you can, as long as it attributes to affordable housing. So that's how we work to be very intentional in putting our transit overlay district also along our transit corridors. We've already zoned it around New Bern Avenue, Weston Boulevard, and South Wilmington Street. We haven't done our northern corridor yet because we're still trying to figure out the route that our northern corridor is going to finally go. There's been conversations about arm towards Wake Forest, arm towards Six Forks, North Hills, as those who grew up in Raleigh know it as, new people know as Midtown. So these are the things that we've been very intentional about. And see, the transit overlay district is what drives transit overlay development. So the development comes based upon the district allowing it. One thing we did many years ago was we got rid of the need for parking. So we have no parking minimums with the city of Raleigh. Again, the intention is to focus on public transit, making sure development that comes along these corridors and parts in some of the inner parts of the city, again, focuses on transit and that overall development. I recently, just as recent as this past weekend, I was in Philadelphia. I've been to New York this summer. Everyone talks about their transit system and everything else. The part that a lot of people don't always talk about too is, yes, there's a subway. Yes, there's buses. They're moving. There's also traffic. So I just want to be very clear that as we build and more people moving here, the goal is to try to reduce some of that traffic, but I'm not going to lie and say we're going to get rid of traffic. The key is, how do we reduce the traffic so that people can get to means and resources? But when it comes to living and having a house, when we talk about 30% of your income going towards housing, the part that a lot of people miss is the transportation costs. If you have a car, if you have one car or two cars, in North Carolina, if you want to be legal, you have to have insurance. Insurance costs are going up. Then there's care and wear of taking care of the vehicle and overall. So if we say, hey, we're building our city so that you can use a reliable transit system and build around that transit system, then that moves away the need for having to have a vehicle to get around for basic living. So these are the things that we've really, as a city, have tried to focus on and be very intentional on. We also have our frequent transit districts where we've made it where anyone wants to build density and not necessarily go for a height bonus, but just want to do affordable housing. You can increase your density, but a certain number of your overall units have to be geared towards affordable housing. So we also have, many people have heard of the missing middle. The mayor, she actually talked about the missing middle without using the terminology. The missing middle is about housing choice. It's about allowing townhomes, allowing duplexes and triplexes to be built in residential communities that they were allowed prior to our 2015 UDO changes. So these are some of the things that we've focused on and have continued to work on around transit within the city of Raleigh. We have the city's growing over 478,000 residents currently in the city of Raleigh. If you want to try to figure that out, go back 25 years ago when the number was around 270,000 residents. So we almost have added 200,000 residents in Raleigh. Not talking Wake County, just in Raleigh in the last 25 years. So then you look at the growth, and the mayor talked about regionalism and overall growth. We have our southern corridor of bus rapid transit heading south into Garner and connecting the Garner community to Raleigh and working along with Go Triangle, because in order to build a regional system and deal with housing and transportation, you have to have partners in this game now. So working with Go Triangle, there's conversation about extending that into Clayton as far as bus rapid transit. But we also have our western leg of bus rapid transit going into Cary and connecting Cary. Again, you put this on top of the regional rail system that we kind of already have, that, you know, I think it's 5 times a day you can get on at Union Station downtown Raleigh and get on a train and head to Durham. And if you want to keep going, you can head on to Greensboro and Durham, and Charlotte and return. These are things that as a city we have tried to focus on and rely on, working with partners like Go Triangle for regional, but also looking at our city code. How can we do better to allow housing choice? Because if we allow choice and we're able to increase density, that can stabilize. I'm not going to say housing prices are just going to come down, but if we can stabilize the housing costs to allow incomes to increase, that helps with affordability. And I send it back to Lily.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you all for kicking off the discussion. If you have any questions that you would like to pose, please put those in the chat so that we can get any clarity that you may need. Denzel, did you want to hop in and add anything?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to say thank you to both of you for the work you did on TLD. Coming from a city transit transplant that had TLD, and Corey knows personally how much I really was hoping we could get that commuter rail from downtown Raleigh to the airport. As someone who's always having to get up early in the morning and seeing it, I'm curious, Mayor Baldwin, because this is an opportunity for the folks who do the policy stuff to get some insight from both of you. What was some of the pressure points around, or what some visions that you saw in terms of trying to get them to move? Because the state is going. I think all of us on some level have to take I-85 and that corridor between us and South Carolina and Georgia, but primarily looking from from Greensboro over to Charlotte. What are some of the provisions the state, the state, or even the Fed was saying that they would need to see in order to get us to that place where they would say, "Hey, we're willing to make an even greater investment in these areas"?
Density,
Density.
density, density, density. That's all we heard when we went to DC. But we face a challenge here in the state because there is not there. The legislature is more highway friendly. They don't see the value of transit. They look at it and say it's really expensive. What do we get from it? I think if you've all been following, Charlotte just received permission to put a 1 cent sales tax on the ballot for transit, but the legislature also said you can't use it just for transit, you have to use it for highways, and you have to use it for miscellaneous things like sidewalks. And so the challenge we face, coming right down to it, is there are people who don't believe in this, especially when they come from rural areas. In rural areas, what they're looking at is how do we build more roads and highways? And I think if you're looking at it from the perspective of, say, a Raleigh, a Greensboro, a Charlotte, you're looking at ways that you can move people quicker. And so there's kind of like this a bit of a messiness in what policies people believe in and don't believe in. And, you know, I've sat at NCDOT conferences and heard legislators say, we're not approving money for transit, it's too expensive. And, you know, they will tell their own personal stories, especially growing up in rural areas. And that's part of what we're up against. And, you know, up until Biden, we did not see any serious investment in infrastructure. That was like the first time we have seen that. But it's what's frustrating to me is when I travel, if I go to Europe or whatnot, you can take a train anywhere. It is amazing. Um, we are just really car centric and have been since our founding. So it's really been about cars, and overcoming that is just difficult.
Yeah, and I was going to add one example of the difficulty is the S line that's coming in, and we're not sure where all the federal funding may be with if it's still going to be come to that project. I know as of right now that we're looking at improvements between downtown Wake Forest and downtown Raleigh. But the S line, the goal, the ultimate goal of the S line from end to end is really from Miami to DC. But the part that we've been focused on right now is from Richmond to Raleigh. I always say you have to get the middle parts done before you can really extend out. And that even goes to when we talk about our regional rail, one of the things that impacted us was around infrastructure. So I try to push, you know, the conversation. Let's connect Selma to Mebane. In order to connect Selma to Mebane, you have to fix the infrastructure improvements in Wake and Durham counties. And once you can do that, then you can start extending that and connecting our rural communities. Because I know plenty of people who live in Mebane and who actually also live in Johnson County that are coming to the Triangle to work, to live, and to play. But once again, creating that infrastructure, that density within Raleigh is something that we're focused on, but also having partners in other parts of the communities that also, because people are moving to North Carolina.
Yeah,
Bar none, they're moving here.
yeah. One other thing too, Corey, that I think is a great example of demand is when the US Open came here to Pinehurst, Amtrak ran a train. It sold out. Tickets sold out in 2 days. And recently, or more recently, they did something for one of the races that sold out. People want to take trains. They want that convenience. It's relaxing. It's you know, you get to, like, you don't feel stressed. You get to go places and see things and experience things in a different way. And I know one of the things that we were studying too was train service from Raleigh to Wilmington. That would take off like a hot potato. I don't know if Wilmington's ready for that, to be honest with you, just in terms of the number of people who go for a weekend. The tourism trade there would just like skyrocket. It'd be amazing. But and whenever I mention that to people, like, oh, did you know we also got funding aside from the S line, but to look at that and to look at Salisbury to Asheville, people are like, oh my God, I would take that in 5 minutes. I mean, so there's a need and desire. We just have to figure out how we can convince people that it will work.
Appreciate you. I don't want to dominate because I always have other questions, but I know I can get access to these wonderful folks. For anyone else in the room, do you have a question or you want to pose a question? I didn't see Lily Mays. Anybody put something in the chat?
I don't see any questions, but I do see some fun facts. So definitely head over to the chat if you want to read a few fun facts that were shared. Also, I saw someone asked about the recording. This will definitely be available as a recording. If you joined us a little bit late, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I put the link there so that you could catch this replay as well. But yeah, I don't see any questions, Denzel, if you had.
Okay. I want to ask a second question on the hill of we did a conversation, as Lily May mentioned, in Charlotte, which was wonderful, had some of the same issues, similar. And I'm Corey, I would probably want to direct this to you because of the New Bern BRT and some of the things that you're learning from that. One of the biggest concerns that came out was, of course, around the upzoning to that area, and then how people were saying the original fear of, the communities behind the line or behind the way would be essentially exasperatedly hit for gentrification. One of what we've seen, at least, is that from the reviews that we were looking at, was that those communities actually got more levers because more missing middle type housing was put in, and it actually reduced a lot of the harm to those communities because, of course, I know you all can't do certain things like put legacy tax rates in for some of the elders that stay in the community, or you can't do a lot of reductions that you want to do. So I'm just curious from what you have seen and your advocacy for BRT and TOD, what has come out of it.
So some of the things so far we haven't seen anything new, any new cases yet that have utilized the TOD. But some of the investments the city has made, one I'll mention is East College Park. Um, there was a lot of vacant properties that existed over there, as well as Washington Terrace had basically been run down. It had over 200 units with about 50 people staying there, 50 units in use, a lot of them boarded up. So back around 2015, some of the things that we did was work through our housing department to go in and revitalize that community. And when we talk about that, it's not just putting in more apartments. We also added work with DHIC for senior housing. We added a daycare that has been ran by Catholic Charities in the location. We also added single family homes. And what we did with our single family homes was a 60-40 split. 60% of those homes were classified as affordable housing. So that means they would use tax credits, things to help people get into their homes, as well as 40% were market rate. But we capped the market rate. So when you drive down the street, you can't tell a market rate from an affordable house until you probably go inside the home and look at maybe some of the utilities and things of that nature. So that's one big lift there. Also, one of the local churches lease, did a 99-year lease to DHIC for senior housing, right there along New Bern Avenue. So those are some of the things we did there from that you can see physically. Now, things to come over the last roughly 2 years, we've had community outreach and input, and we created a community organization to look at our DMV headquarters and revitalizing DMV, which will include some housing. But we lost 300 jobs along that corridor when DMV moved to Rocky Mount. So we're also looking at jobs and what we can do to have items that uplift and support the community. That's why we had community involvement. We had a community group that was involved. They just reported back to the council in June of their findings and their ideas. The next step is we're doing a market study because we want to make sure whatever we do makes sense. So we're going to do a market study on the ideas that were presented. After that, we will do a RFI. It's just a request for information. We'll say, hey, developing community, these are the ideas we have, we want to do. You provide us feedback on what ways you can see development here based upon some of these ideas that we definitely want to incorporate. After we receive that information back, then we will do an RFP. And the RFP will be the request for proposal for the actual development and moving the project forward. From a time frame standpoint, hopefully this time next year, we will be saying who received the RFP as far as the project. So we are trying to get things moving because time is money. And that's one of the major impacts with affordable housing. That's why we want to use the transit overlay district to make things predictable so people understand what's happening and how to move forward. So we also had two groups that work with our businesses along the corridor, talk to them so that they understand bus rapid transit and the impact of bus rapid transit during construction, post-construction, and how we can make sure that our construction doesn't put anyone out of business. Out of conversations, we actually shifted the roads in the design work to make sure we did not negatively impact a business due to parking, because we're also going to be adding sidewalks. Everyone talks about the roadway, but how do you get to your bus stops? We need sidewalks. So there will be sidewalks that are part of this project on New Bern Avenue that will be added as well. So those are just some of the ways and things as far as that quarter that we've done. Hopefully, I kind of said a lot because there's a lot going on, but hopefully I addressed your question as far as what are some things that we've done in the community for that impact. And the community has always been invited to meetings. The community was heavily involved with the TOD, and we made some modifications on certain properties during the rezoning case and placing the TOD along the corridor.
Appreciate it. Mayor Baldwin, I saw you come off mute. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add with DMV, we don't want to make the same mistakes we've made in the past. And I think what happens too is public doesn't understand the financing piece. They might say, oh, this is what we want, but a developer has to finance it. A bank has to be willing to finance it. And the financing comes into play here. What has happened at the property around Moore Square, with all of the uncertainty and changes and rates and all that, the developer said, we can no longer build this. We can't do this. The numbers don't work anymore. So part of the reason for a market study is being realistic about this and not just being like, oh, this sounds great, let's do it. If we don't have the numbers, if we don't have the financing to back it, we can't make it happen. And the other thing we really need to look at too is public-private partnerships. I think that is key. City plays a role in this as well. And that's what will be looked at in this market study. You can have dreams, but you also
It's like we lost
I
her.
think we lost the mayor. Give her a moment to come back. I saw a question in the chat from Harrison. I'll read it out. It was, how is stormwater handled with higher density? You want to take that one, Corey?
So we've updated our stormwater policies overall as making sure a lot of what we're doing, and actually part of the BRT project, is we have some pipes that are over 100 years old, some 75 years old. We're going to replace them during the project. So one of the things that we've already have done in certain communities, and I use the College Park example, we've gone in and we replaced piping where I live, which is nowhere near directly near bus rapid transit. We've been working, increasing our piping across the overall city. So when we talk about density, we're making sure that we have the means and what's needed. I can see his question too about permeable pavers. We're looking at that downtown. One of the things that we've looked at downtown around our trees, what was there, the crates, they're old, they're falling apart, some are trip hazards. We're actually replacing them with certain material so that water can seep in. We're trying to also retain as much water as possible. But a lot of what is happening is when you look at New Bern, and I use New Bern Avenue as a great example, a lot of the development that's going to happen is actually redevelopment. There's no new space along New Bern Avenue. So really anything that's happening, there's something already there and they're looking at redevelopment. And I use the shopping center, the little strip shopping center that's right there on New Bern Avenue in between the library and Raleigh Boulevard. There's a restaurant now that's open. The dry cleaners is the only thing that remained. All the other stores left. It was redeveloped. They're now looking to have businesses come in, but we're definitely making sure that we work on reuse overall as well.
Appreciate you. Mayor, you felt, did you want to finish your point before we go to the next question, or you want to just?
I think we're
I'm good.
Oh, okay, just making sure. So someone asked, what would it be possible to get a breakdown of missing middle permits on what percentage is townhomes versus other missing middle products? I'm assuming apartments in comparison to single family. Is that
So that link was shared.
okay?
Eric Braun shared the link to that.
Okay.
I don't have the exact number, but that link was shared.
Okay. And then the other question that was asked was, what are the thoughts for serving guests and testing for studying expansion options during the World Games?
That's actually an excellent question. And
Yeah.
it's something like Corey and I both sit on the Go Triangle board. I'm the chair, and Corey's been on there for how long now? It's been a while.
5 years.
Yep. But what we have talked about is how can we're going to have to accommodate 6,000 people coming here. I mean, that's just the athletes. And how are we going to accommodate that? How are we going to transport them? I mean, I really see that, this is one area where we're going to have to involve the state. There's going to be millions and millions of dollars in economic development. And we're going to have that transit operating from Raleigh to Greensboro. And because we're using all the facilities in between. So this presents a wonderful opportunity to get some things done. And in talking with Joe Malazzo as well, who's with Raleigh Transportation Alliance, it's like we need to start talking about what the needs are going to be. I'm sure we're going to get a report from Go Triangle because some of our employees are going out to the World University Games, spending a week there, kind of seeing how things operate, learning from that experience, and then, bringing back that knowledge here. So I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more from people in the transit space about how it's almost like that puts a pressure point on us to move a little more rapidly instead of just sitting there going, oh, that would be a great idea. So I say use it every chance we get to make sure that we're moving the region forward on transit.
I really appreciate that answer. That was my question. This is Stephanie with Wake Transit TPAC. And I was a little surprised that with our FY26 plan and in the 10-year plan that we're about ready to send out for its last round of public comments, that there really hasn't been discussion about how we might be able to test some things for density-ish things that will be arising as a result of the game. Or my last conversation with the transit providers was there really isn't any talk on the table yet about offering anything else than what we're already offering, because there isn't structure in place to support that. And so that's why I'm asking the question and wanting to make sure that the conversation's there. I'm excited to hear the people that are going to travel international and come back and hear what they have to say. I'm excited about the bus wraps that are already getting noticed. Like, things are moving, but I'd like Wake Transit to at least be considered to help pitch in and maybe move some of our projects further along.
I think you're going to start hearing more and more about this. I know at Go Triangle, we are going to be talking to our partners about how we can all work together to treat this with more of a sense of urgency. And just, again, this is a real good reason to get things done and not just like, government moves slowly. We all know that, but we have this huge opportunity, ahead of us in 4 years. Wow. I mean, we can't blow it. we need to be able to put our best foot forward. We need to shine. I mean, this is PR, like no one would believe. We don't want negative PR. We want positive. We want the world to see us for who we are and the positive things that we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for asking that.
I saw a comment from Connor. I think we got a couple more minutes. So under discuss comment jump. Jen jumps. Undiscussed aspect of sprawling development patterns is the fiscal impact on taxpayers for having to maintain more square footage of water, road, electrical utilities, serving fewer people per money spent. And has the state legislature been receptive in any of those arguments, discussions around transit? I guess either one of you could provide
Yeah,
some
I mean,
insight
so
on.
I would say we're in constant conversation about transit needs here in Raleigh, as far as what we need and how to move. Our council has paid a lot of focus on discussing sprawl. One of the things I try to highlight is, again, earlier I said people are moving here. So we have a choice. Do we grow out or do we grow up? If you say no to both, then we're stuck. And sometimes there's individuals that have said no to both. So we are a regional water supplier. So that's one thing I do want to highlight. So a lot of areas where we talk about, well, the infrastructure of water, we supply water to Knightdale, Wendell, Zebulon, Garner, and Wake Forest, and Roseville. So supplying water to those communities, some of the infrastructure is already there. So it's just tapping into it as areas grow. One of the things that I push for, so we could do smart growth, was the Southeast Raleigh area study. And that is the area from Southeast Raleigh going towards really Clayton. And if anyone's been in Johnson County, Clayton is growing westward and Raleigh was growing a little bit eastward. But how do we do it intelligently? How do we do it smartly? And one of the premises of me pushing for that study was because I-540 will be completed by 2028. So with I-540 being completed, I saw what I-540 did to Fuquay-Varina, Holly Springs, and Apex, and they grew without a plan. So the key is to get in front of it. So we do have the Southeast Raleigh area study. There is a plan in place so that we can have intelligent and smart growth as we move forward. But sometimes I will be honest, a developer will go buy land and start building, and it's in the county. And it's not in the city limits. And then later they say, hey, we want Raleigh water that they want to tap into. Thus, they have to be annexed because we no longer do sewer only annexations. If you get sewer, you also have to get water because, and just, being transparent, 10, 15 years ago, when there were sewer only connections, if they didn't pay that bill, how do you cut off a sewer? You can't. So these are ways where we're holding people accountable with the growth that is happening. But there's a lot that goes into asking development to pay for infrastructure. And a lot of those are conversations that we try to have with the Raleigh Housing Authority, but also the home builders, working with the Home Builders Association and trying to be good partners, especially with our local Home Builders Association, which we have been historically in working with the local chapter.
Thank you. I see a bunch of comments. Thank you, Duncan. I'm not going to reread them. Thank you. Most of that was put in there, Harrison, earlier about how we were dealing with the storm water piece. But this recording, you can go back and look at it, as Lily Mae said. And then thank you, Jen, for your comment. I want to also just say thank you to all our partners, Eric Braun from Raleigh Ford, Jen Trudman and City Builder, and Duncan from the Mercatus community. So thank you for everybody that's here. Is there just, I guess, well, we got a few more minutes, any more questions? If not, I'll probably give you all some closing thoughts. I all know I'm fortunate enough to be able to have access to both of you. But I just wanted to see if there's any, as you know, we're a statewide organization. We're trying, Mayor Baldwin, I want to say I love you for the idea of trying to get the Rally to Wilmington Whew, if you knew how many miles I put on my car, we're actually going to be doing a dinner and conversation in Wilmington. And so to be able to have that, so I don't have to drive a 40 all the time would be, I think for everybody in the state would be exceptional. But I guess if you all could tell us as a statewide policy table that is trying to desperately push all of these ideas and work with all the partners, I guess any last thoughts or ideas or areas that we may need to look at it or blind spots that we can take away, and then I'll give it back to Lee May. That'd be great.
Mayor, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. My keep camera froze, so I didn't hear what the question was.
I was saying if you had any thoughts around areas that we as the North Carolina Housing Table and the coalition of partners that we're trying to pull to basically advocate more effectively. You know, we're working on parking lot minimums right now. Hopefully we can get that push. We were trying to hope that we get a statewide standard on ADUs that it got ate up in the House. When they try to come back next year with some of the things, but the same to both of you from a city level, because we got a lot of pressure around some bills like 765, which now is 2205, and it's now whatever form it might have been. Um, just wanting to know, I guess, what do you think we can do to help more effectively to inform, push the legislature from the vantage points that we've been given, as well as the governor's office that we're now trying to work with on some housing task force stuff?
Well, what I would say is, first off, you need to work with the Home Builders Association. They have a lot of influence. And also, it's interesting to me, some of the most progressive people are the ones who are anti-housing. And we see that all the time. They're the ones who come out and say, we don't want those people living near us. It's really kind of tragic to watch. But well, look at the examples. San Francisco, Seattle, look what's happened on the West Coast. It's but we're all impacted by that because we're all seeing that. And I think you have to also work with elected officials to give them cover when decisions are made. Um, when we did missing middle housing, oh my goodness, you might have thought, um, I don't know, there was a lot of misinformation around that. And it was like, oh, you never told us, blah, blah. We held all of these public that like it was during COVID when a lot of this happened, but there was still a lot of public engagement. And the fact of the matter is, missing middle housing is the way communities used to be built back in the day. And when you think about it, that's some of the most popular neighborhoods in our city were built early on with missing middle housing in it. They have duplexes, they have triplexes, they have ADUs, there's townhomes. I mean, it's like this is how communities used to be built. And that is a good example of why we should go back to allowing this. And in Raleigh, we are, but we have to expand that to other areas of the city and the state. And like I said, I think the best bet for that is we need to educate too, like progressive people, who say they are for this or for that. Well, show it.
Yeah, I would just, agree with the mayor and her comments. Again, working with partners, working with those that you may not agree with on certain issues, to find common ground, because a lot of times we have more things in common than we have that differentiates us. Continue to highlight and educate the community as well. We have a lot of couch experts that are throughout all our communities, but just making sure that as we work and as we build, that facts are facts, good, bad. We may not always agree with them. Being an elected official, there's some facts I don't agree with, but it's still a fact, and it's a fact that I have to live with, and I have to govern with that in mind. So I just say continue to push forward. Looking at those that have signed on, some I know who also know how to reach us and ask us questions and things of that nature. And I say just continue that engagement. And for those online that I don't know, or those that are watching this later, just continue to be involved in a positive way. Remember, at the end of the day, we all want to make sure the next generation has it better than what we have. But it also means that sometimes we may have to take an idea that from the past and reimagine it. And I go back to rail. This country was built on the train. And now we're talking about bringing trains back to help people get around. So I just want to thank you for having me today and look forward to future conversations.
Yeah, and I want to throw an interesting stat out there that might make you all think. But the average age of a first-time home buyer these days is 38 years old. That is hugely different than, say, what it was 10, 20 years ago. But this stat really blew my mind. A third of all households are single-person households now. So when you start thinking about, okay, why is it hard to afford a home or place or whatnot? Well, it's third of it is single people. They're trying to make ends meet. The demographics are changing. People are putting off marriage. They're putting off relationships. It's an When I heard that stat, I was like, wow, that explains a lot. And we have to look at these new realities when we're talking about housing affordability and choice, because it really is about choice. When you have a third of households now or one person, that's a totally different need. And we need to start paying attention to that.
Well, thank both of you. Thank you, Mayor Baldwin. Thank you, Councilmember Branch, for that. I saw some of those stats as well, Mayor, about the around the age. I'm 42, so I think it's pushing closer to where I'm at. It's a problem. Lily Mae, I give it back to you.
Sure thing. Again, thank you all for tuning in today. And of course, thank you, Mayor Baldwin and Corey Branch, for lending your time to us. I'm going to put some links in the chat. I've already put in the YouTube link. If you want to catch this replay, it'll be available later today on our YouTube channel. You can go ahead and subscribe, and then it'll pop up for you there. We also released the inaugural issue of NC Housing Table magazine. And so that magazine highlights other advocates and leaders in the space of championing more housing options. So I'll put a link to that in case you want to get a digital copy or a print copy of that, just to see who else, in the community across the state are really supporting the same movement. I put that link there. And also, if you're interested in having your organization or your business included in the next issue of the magazine, I put my email there. And also, you can save my email if you think of a collaboration opportunity or you want to participate with our next online workshop or our next in-person roundtable dinner series. Just shoot me an email, because we definitely want to collaborate with other leaders and advocates across the state. Otherwise, I saw a little comment. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Otherwise, again, thank you all for tuning in. We will return in August. And if you're on our email list, you'll get that invite as well. So I'll put a link to that. So many links. So I'm going to give you time to click all the links. But that's last link is how you can join our email list and really stay involved in what we're doing and in the know of what's going on across the state. We also send out action alerts, and we also update you on what's going on with different bills and things of that nature. So definitely make sure you're on that email list. Otherwise, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.